This story is titled My Golden Boy Brother and His Fiancée Demanding My Inheritance for Their Wedding, and My Parents Sided with Them, so I cut them off for good. Hey everyone, before we get into today's video, I need your support. We've noticed the channel is losing some momentum, and subscribing is one of the quickest, easiest ways to help us. It's free, and it enables us to keep bringing you great content. Your support truly means a lot to us, so let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much! Now, let's get into the video. Hey folks, posting here feels a bit strange. Honestly, I never imagined I'd be typing something like this, but I'm at a loss for what to do now. This is a family issue, and it's really eating at me. I'm hoping you can give me some clarity. So, let me introduce myself. I'm Mia, I'm 27, and I'm the oldest in my family. We're a middle-class group, nothing extravagant, but we always had enough to live comfortably. My parents, Anna and Robert, have owned a cozy bakery for over 20 years, which has become an important part of our small town. Growing up, we weren't wealthy, but we always had what we needed. My parents worked hard, and they made sure my younger brother, Jake, the golden boy, and I learned to do the same. For some context, Jake was always considered the golden boy of the family. He could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, and they'd always rush to defend him, no matter the situation, whether it was getting a pass for slacking off in school or being lavished with praise for doing the bare minimum. Jake was the center of attention. Honestly, I didn't mind it much. I wasn't the type to crave the spotlight. I preferred doing my own thing, staying out of the drama, and focusing on my own goals. If Jake needed to be the center of attention, he could have it. It didn't bother me, at least not until now. Now, here's where things get interesting. 5 years ago, my grandfather passed away. It was tough because we were close. When his will was read, I found out he'd left me a trust fund. It wasn't a huge fortune or anything, but it was a significant amount that could really change my life if I used it wisely. However, there were conditions. I couldn't access it until I turned 30, and even then, it could only be used for certain things like purchasing a home or going back to school. At first, I didn't think much about it. I'm not the type to splurge, so I just figured I'd leave it untouched until I needed it. My plan was to either use it for a small apartment in the city or perhaps to start a business, something I've always wanted to do. Fast forward to earlier this year, and Jake got engaged to his girlfriend, Emma. She's 26 and comes from a wealthy family. I don't want to sound harsh, but Emma is one of those people who just radiates charm. She's the life of the party, very polished, and everyone seems to adore her. I liked her at first, but then things started to feel off. A couple of months ago, we were having a family dinner when Emma casually mentioned my trust fund. She asked me what I planned to do with the money once I could access it. I was taken aback. I said something about maybe buying an apartment or starting a business. Is it just me, or is that a personal matter? I didn't know what else to say. Emma smiled brightly and said, "Wow, that's so lucky. You know, Jake and I could really use some help with the wedding, or even a down payment on a house." Jake laughed awkwardly, unsure if she was serious, and I laughed too, thinking it was a joke. But then Emma just kept staring at me, as if waiting for me to agree. It was incredibly awkward. My parents stepped in, mentioning that the money was mine and wasn't really up for discussion, which seemed to end the conversation, for that night, at least. But after that dinner, I couldn't shake the strange feeling. It seemed like Emma had planted a seed, and I didn't realize how much it would grow in the weeks to come. Every time we gathered as a family, Emma would find a way to bring it up again. She wasn't direct, but her comments became more pointed, like saying, It's so amazing that you have that kind of opportunity, Mia. It's so rare to see someone who could really help their family. At first, I just let it slide. I'd change the topic or laugh it off, but she wouldn't let up. It wasn't just Emma either. Jake didn't say anything at first, but then he started making subtle remarks, too. I could tell he was on Emma's side. He'd say things like, "It's not like you're using the money right now. I get why Emma is bringing it up." I tried talking to my parents about it, hoping they'd step in and set some boundaries, but their response was surprising. Instead of shutting it down, my mom said, "You know, Emma just wants to feel like part of the family. She's not trying to be pushy." Who said she was being pushy? I hadn't even used that word yet, but that's exactly how it felt. At this point, I started to feel trapped. I didn't want to cause any drama, but I also wasn't about to give away money that wasn't even available yet. Plus, I had my own plans for it. Still, I figured if I stayed calm and stuck to my decisions, this would eventually pass. But then Emma made it clear what she thought. At another family dinner, she pulled me aside and bluntly said, "Mia, I really think you should reconsider what you're doing with that money. Helping Jake and me would be such a meaningful way to show your support for the family. Don't you think it's kind of selfish to keep it when you're not even using it?" I was stunned by her directness. No one had ever called me selfish, especially not to my face. I calmly told her that the money wasn't accessible yet, and I had my own plans for it when the time came. She just stared at me as if I'd slapped her. Then she said, "I guess I misunderstood what kind of person you are." Jake called me the next day to apologize, but it didn't feel sincere. He said Emma was just stressed about the wedding and didn't mean to come across so strong. But then he added, "She's not wrong, though. You are in a position to help, and it wouldn't hurt to think about it." At this point, I was starting to feel like I was the crazy one. Was I being selfish? Was I overreacting? I decided to talk to some close friends about it, and they reassured me that I wasn't in the wrong, but that didn't make it any easier. The whole situation was starting to weigh on me. It wasn't just the comments or the uncomfortable conversations, but the sense that my family wasn't on my side. My parents, who I thought would always have my back, seemed more interested in keeping the peace than standing up for me. Emma wasn't about to back down anytime soon. She wasn't the type to accept rejection, and Jake was obviously fully on board with whatever she wanted. My parents, on the other hand, were caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace without actually addressing the issue at hand. I honestly have no idea how far this would escalate, but one thing is for certain: I'm not backing down. Am I overreacting? Let me know your thoughts. Update 1. Hey guys, I didn't expect to post again so soon, but things have gotten a lot worse. Like, seriously, worse. It feels like I'm stuck in this absurd situation with no way out. So, here's what's been happening since my last post. After that uncomfortable conversation with Emma, where she called me selfish, I started noticing subtle changes in how people were treating me. It wasn't anything too obvious at first, but there was definitely a shift. At family gatherings, Emma would give me these tight, forced smiles, and Jake started becoming distant. My parents were still trying to be peacemakers, but even they seemed a little off. Then, Emma started getting bolder. She developed this habit of cornering me at family events, always bringing up the same topic: my trust fund. One time, she pulled me aside while everyone else was watching TV and said, "Mia, I've been thinking. What if you just gave us part of the trust fund as a wedding gift? It wouldn't have to be the whole amount, just enough for a house down payment." Clearly, the trust fund was keeping her up at night. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A wedding gift? Who asks for something like that? I told her no again and explained, as kindly as I could, that the trust fund wasn't even available yet. And even if it were, I had my own plans for it. She gave me this look as if I'd just told her I hated puppies. "I thought you cared about your family," she said. "Jake and I are starting our life together, and this could really help us. It's not like you need the money right now." I was completely floored. The entitlement was unreal. I walked away without saying anything more, but I was left feeling completely drained. And it didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, Emma started getting more creative. She framed the whole situation as a way to bring the family closer. At one point, she even suggested that me giving them the money would be an investment in the family's future. I couldn't help but laugh at how ridiculous that sounded. An investment? I was supposed to fund their life and expect, what, dividends? It only got worse as Jake started getting pulled into her way of thinking. He wasn't outright demanding the money, at least not yet, but he began saying things like, "Mia, you're in such a good position to help, and this could really make a difference." It felt like he was testing the waters to see how much he could push before I snapped. I tried to talk to my parents again, hoping they'd step in, but when I told them what Emma had been saying, their reaction shocked me. My mom said, "Emma just wants to feel part of the family, and you know Jake's always had it a little harder than you financially." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Harder than me? We grew up in the same house with the same parents, went to the same schools. The only difference was that I worked hard to save and plan for my future, while Jake didn't. My dad jumped in and said, "I'm not saying you should do it, Mia, but maybe just think about it. Sometimes keeping the peace is more important than being right." Keeping the peace? Is that seriously their priority? That's when I realized this wasn't just about Emma anymore. My parents were enabling her behavior, whether they realized it or not. The final straw came a few weeks later, when Emma and Jake invited me out to lunch. I thought it would be just a casual sibling catch-up, but as soon as I sat down, I knew I'd walked into a trap. After some small talk about their wedding plans, Emma leaned in and said, "Mia, we've been thinking. What if you gave us half of the trust fund? That way, you'd still have plenty for your own plans, and we could start our life without all this stress." Half? She actually said half? I calmly told her again that the trust fund wasn't even available yet, and even if it were, I had no intention of giving any of it away. That's when Emma's tone shifted. She started saying I was hoarding money that could be used to help the entire family, that it wasn't fair for me to keep it all to myself. Jake jumped in and said, "I see your point, Mia, but Emma's not wrong. This could really change things for us. You're in such a good position to help." It felt like they were ganging up on me, and I left that lunch feeling completely drained. A few days later, my parents called me over for what they called a family meeting. When I walked in, I saw Jake and Emma already there, looking smug. My parents started talking about how they just wanted to resolve the tension and keep the family together. Then my dad said, "Mia, maybe it's time to consider giving them a portion of the trust. It doesn't have to be half, but something to show your support." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents were pressuring me to give up my inheritance just to make Emma happy. I firmly told them no this time and walked out. Since then, things have only gotten worse. Emma's been talking to extended family, telling them her side of the story. Now, I'm getting calls and texts from aunts, uncles, and even cousins I haven't spoken to in years, all telling me I'm being selfish and that I should do the right thing. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is this really happening? How did my entire family get sucked into this? I don't know what to do anymore. I've tried setting boundaries, but no one seems to respect them. I'm starting to think I need to take legal action, but the thought of going that far against my own family makes me feel sick. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I just needed to get this off my chest. Thanks for reading. And if anyone has advice, I'm all ears. Update 2. Hey Reddit. I'm back again. I'm not sure how many updates this will take, but I'm barely holding it together. What's worse is, I've realized this isn't just Emma anymore. My entire family seems to be falling apart over this trust fund drama. After that disastrous lunch with Jake and Emma, where they asked for half of the trust fund, I thought maybe things would calm down. I made it as clear as possible that the money wasn't accessible yet, and that I wasn't giving them any of it. I was frustrated, but I figured I'd just wait for things to settle down. Then, my parents called. My dad asked if I could come over because they wanted to have a chat. He said it in that calm, almost too friendly tone that immediately set off alarm bells in my head. I asked if this was about Jake and Emma, and my mom said, "Not exactly, but it's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. When I walked into their house, the first thing I saw was Jake and Emma sitting on the couch, looking like they were ready for a business meeting, both sitting up straight, fake smiles on their faces. My mom gestured for me to sit, and I realized this wasn't just a casual chat. It was some kind of intervention. It started off light. My dad asked how I was doing, how work was going, all the usual small talk. But it didn't take long for the real reason I was there to come out. My mom began, "Mia, we've all been feeling a lot of tension lately, and we just want to find a way to resolve it." I knew exactly where this was going. I glanced at Jake and Emma gave me one of her signature tight-lipped smiles. My dad jumped in. "We think it would be best if we could come to some sort of compromise." "Compromise?" I asked, already annoyed. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Jake leaned forward, looking more uncomfortable than I'd ever seen him. "Mia, we know you've got your own plans for the trust fund, and we respect that, but Emma and I are in a really tough spot right now. We're planning our wedding and trying to figure out our future, and honestly, even a little help from you would make such a big difference." Emma nodded along, jumping in before I could respond. "Exactly. It doesn't have to be half, just something to show that you support us. It's not just about the money. It's about family." That word, family, was starting to feel like a weapon they were using against me. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice steady. "I've said this a million times, and I'll say it again. The trust fund isn't even available yet. And even if it were, I have my own plans for it. I'm not giving it away." My dad shifted in his seat. "Clearly, uncomfortable, Mia. We're not saying you need to give them half or anything drastic, but perhaps think about helping them with a small portion. It could go a long way in easing the tension in the family." I stared at him, stunned. "So, what? Am I supposed to just give them money I don't even have access to yet, just to ease tensions? How is this my responsibility?" Jake sighed, as if he was tired of dealing with me. "It's not just about the money, Mia. It's about showing that you care. You're in such a good position, and this could really help us start our life together." I looked at Emma, who was sitting there with a smug smile, as though she'd already won. "This isn't fair," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've worked hard to plan for my future, and this money is part of that. Why should I have to give it up just because you two decided to get married?" Emma's smile faded. "It's not about fairness, Mia. It's about family. Jake and I are trying to build something here, and you have the means to help us. It wouldn't even hurt you to give just a little." My mom chimed in with a softer voice, but still frustrating. "Mia, I think what Emma is trying to say is that this could help bring the family closer. Sometimes it's better to compromise than to hold on so tightly to something." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents, who'd always been so supportive, were now taking Emma's side. "I'm not holding on tightly," I finally snapped. "I'm following the rules of the trust fund, and I have my own goals for it. Why is that so hard for everyone to understand?" A long silence followed before Emma spoke again, her tone cold. "You know, Mia, I think the real issue is that you're not willing to put the family first. Jake and I have always supported you, and now that we need help, you're shutting us out. It's really disappointing." I stood up, unable to take it anymore. "I'm not shutting anyone out. I'm just not giving you what you want, and that doesn't make me selfish or a bad sister. It's my money, my decision, and I'm done with this conversation." My dad tried to stop me as I moved toward the door. "Mia, wait. Don't leave like this. We just want to find a solution that works for everyone." I turned back and looked at them. "You mean a solution that works for Jake and Emma because that's all this meeting was about? If you can't see how unfair this is, then I don't know what else to say." With that, I walked out. Since then, I've hardly spoken to my parents. Jake and Emma have completely stopped talking to me, which, honestly, feels like a relief. But the worst part is how isolated I feel. I always thought my family would have my back, no matter what. Now, it feels like they've all turned against me, and for what? I'm not sure what my next step is. Part of me wants to cut them all off, but another part of me hopes things can somehow go back to normal. For now, I'm trying to focus on myself and block out all the noise, but it's hard when the people who should love you the most are the ones causing all the pain. Thanks for letting me vent, Reddit. I don't know what I'd do without you all. Update 3. Hey Reddit, I'm back with another update. And honestly, things have gone from bad to worse. After weeks of being cornered, guilt-tripped, and painted as the villain, I finally decided to take a stand. It's not what I wanted, but I'm realizing that I can't keep hoping this will just blow over. After that last family meeting, I spent a few days trying to process everything. The phone calls, texts, and side glances from family members were relentless. It felt like every day someone new was telling me I was selfish, or that I needed to think about what really mattered. No one seemed to care that the trust fund wasn't accessible yet, or that it had clear restrictions. All they saw was a pot of money, and they wanted me to hand it over. The tipping point came when I received a call from my cousin Laura, one of the few family members who has supported me through all of this. She told me that Emma had been spreading rumors about me at family gatherings. Apparently, Emma had been telling everyone that Mia doesn't care about family, and that it was sad to see someone prioritize money over their own brother. Hearing this made my blood boil. I knew Emma was manipulative, but going behind my back and trying to turn the entire family against me was a new low. To make matters worse, Laura also told me that Emma had been asking other relatives for details about my financial situation. She'd been snooping around, trying to find out how much money I actually had and whether there was any way she could access it. That was the final straw for me. I decided to consult a lawyer. I needed to know my rights and how to protect myself, so I booked an appointment with a local attorney who specializes in estate law. When I explained the situation to her, she was shocked. She told me that what Emma was doing, pressuring me, spreading rumors, and digging into my finances, could be considered harassment. She assured me that the trust fund was solid and that no one but me would be able to access it when the time came. Hearing that was a relief, but it didn't solve the immediate problem. My lawyer advised me to start documenting everything: texts, emails, conversations, anything that could show a pattern of harassment or manipulation. She also suggested I issue a cease and desist letter if things didn't calm down soon. Over the next few days, I went through my phone and saved every message I could find. The texts from Emma, the guilt-tripping calls from Jake, even the passive-aggressive comments from my mom, all of it went into a folder. It felt weird, like I was building a case against my own family. But at this point, I didn't know what else to do. Meanwhile, Emma wasn't slowing down. She started posting. Vague posts on social media about selfish family members, and drama started to appear. While Emma didn't mention me directly, it was clear who she was referring to. Some of the comments were downright nasty, and I began receiving messages from people I hadn't heard from in years, asking what was going on. It wasn't just online either. Emma started bringing her campaign into the real world. One day, a coworker pulled me aside at work and said, "Hey, just so you know, someone's been asking questions about you. They called HR pretending to be a family member, wanting to know your salary and financial details." I was horrified. I had no proof it was Emma, but the timing and details seemed too coincidental to ignore. That night, I called my lawyer again and told her about the social media posts, the phone calls, and the attempt to snoop into my finances. She advised me it was time to send a cease and desist letter. The letter was firm but professional, outlining all the inappropriate actions Emma had taken and warning her to stop immediately. It also made clear that further harassment would lead to legal action. Sending it made me feel sick, honestly. I didn't want to escalate things, but Emma was leaving me with no choice. Within days, Jake called, furious. "What the hell, Mia? You sent a legal letter to my fiancé? Do you know how embarrassing this is for us?" I tried to stay calm. "Jake, I had no choice. Emma has been harassing me for weeks, and I can't take it anymore. She's crossed too many lines." Jake didn't see it that way. He accused me of overreacting, saying, "She's just trying to make you see her side, Mia. This is about family, not money." I told him, if it's really about family, then why is Emma going behind my back, spreading lies and digging into my finances? That's not what family does. The call ended with Jake saying he needed some time to cool off. Since then, things have been quieter, but the tension still lingers. Emma stopped posting on social media, and I haven't heard from her directly. My parents, however, are furious with me for involving a lawyer. My mom said, "You didn't need to make this a legal issue, Mia. You could have just talked to us." I reminded her that I did try talking to them multiple times, but they did nothing. Of course, that didn't change her mind. Right now, I'm focusing on protecting myself. I've documented everything, and my lawyer is on standby in case Emma tries anything else. It's not the resolution I was hoping for, but at least I feel like I have some control again. I just wish my family could understand how much this is hurting me. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens. Update 4? Hey guys, I'm back with another update as promised. Things unfolded in ways I didn't expect. It's funny how life sometimes reveals the truth without you even trying. So here goes. The cease and desist letter did what it was supposed to. At first, Emma went quiet, and the passive-aggressive posts on social media stopped for a few days. For a while, it seemed like things might actually calm down. But, of course, it wasn't that simple. My parents and Jake made sure the tension didn't go away. It started with my mom calling me again, her voice sharp and frustrated. "Mia, do you realize how much damage that letter caused? Emma's humiliated, and now the whole family thinks we're falling apart," I said, exhausted. "Emma's been harassing me for weeks. She tried to turn everyone against me, dug into my financial situation, and wouldn't take no for an answer. What else was I supposed to do?" Her response? "You could have handled it better. Sending legal letters to family isn't how we solve problems." I hung up, realizing for the 100th time that my parents weren't going to see my side, no matter what Emma did. They seemed determined to blame me for escalating things. A few days later, everything blew up in a way no one expected. Jake accidentally sent a group text, meant only for Emma, to the family chat, which included me, our parents, and a few cousins. The messages exposed everything. In the first text, he wrote to Emma, "I found the messages you sent to your friends about Mia and the trust fund. Are you serious? You've been bragging about securing the bag this whole time?" Then came the screenshots. Messages Emma had sent to someone else, gloating about how she was relying on my parents to wear me down. One of the messages read, "Don't worry, Robert and Anna will push Mia into giving me the money. She's too soft to hold out forever." Another screenshot showed Emma mocking me, saying, "Mia's so focused on her little business dreams that she doesn't even realize how selfish she's being. This money should have been split between the family from the start." Jake's follow-up text to Emma hit even harder. "I can't believe you've been manipulating everyone, including me, just to get your hands on money that isn't yours. This stops now." When those messages and screenshots appeared in the family chat, the silence was deafening. Seconds later, Jake realized his mistake and sent, "Oh no, this wasn't supposed to go here. I'm so sorry." But it was too late. The group chat exploded. My mom was the first to respond, writing, "Emma, what is this? Is this true?" My dad quickly followed, asking, "Emma, you told us you were trying to work things out peacefully. Were you lying to us this whole time?" Emma scrambled to defend herself, replying, "These are being taken completely out of context. I was venting to friends about how stressful everything's been with the wedding. You've all misunderstood." But no one seemed to believe her. Not this time. Jake didn't say anything else in the chat, but the damage was done. Later that evening, Jake called me, his voice shaky. "Mia, I'm so sorry. I was going to confront Emma privately, but I accidentally sent those messages to everyone. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "Jake," I said, my frustration barely contained, "why didn't you say something sooner? You've been defending her for months, while she's been doing this behind everyone's back." "I didn't know how bad it was until recently," he admitted. "I found those messages on her phone by accident, and I couldn't believe it. I was trying to figure out how to confront her without blowing everything up. Clearly, I failed." His voice cracked as he continued, "I let her manipulate me, Mia. I thought she was just pushing for what was best for us, but now I see how far she's taken it. I'm so sorry for everything." I sighed, feeling a mix of anger and pity. "Jake, I've been trying to tell you this for months. Emma didn't care about the family. She cared about getting what she wanted. I appreciate the apology, but fixing this will take more than words." He agreed, and just disappeared. The fallout from those texts was immediate. Laura, my cousin and biggest supporter, told me later that the family group chat had been buzzing with reactions for hours after I left it. Many relatives who had criticized me started to change their tune, finally seeing Emma's true colors. But Emma wasn't done. In the following days, she tried to save face by calling family members individually, spinning new stories. She claimed the texts were jokes, or that I'd blown everything out of proportion. She said she'd only been acting out because of wedding stress. By then, though, most of the family wasn't buying it. The screenshots were too damning, and her excuses didn't hold up. Jake, meanwhile, stayed quiet for a while. When he finally called me again, his tone was different, more resigned. "I've ended things with Emma," he said. "I couldn't stay with someone who would treat my family like that. I can't believe I let it get this far." I could hear the regret in his voice, but it didn't erase the months of hurt I'd endured. "Jake, I'm glad you're seeing things clearly now," I said. "But you need to figure out why you let her manipulate you and why you defended her even when the signs were clear." And that's it for now. Thank you all for your comments. I really appreciate it. I honestly don't think Jake will continue his relationship with Emma, but I'm not sure yet. If anything else happens in my messed up life, I'll post a final update. Final update. Hey guys, here's the final update on everything that's happened. I never thought things would go this far, but I'm finally in a place where I can put this whole mess behind me. As for Emma, she didn't go quietly. Laura told me she overheard Emma complaining at a recent family event, saying, "This whole thing is Mia's fault. If she'd just done the right thing, none of this would have happened." I heard through the grapevine that Emma's wedding plans were falling apart. The high-end venue she'd booked canceled. The dream dress was returned, and she couldn't afford any of it because she had been relying on me to fund her vision. Now that her plan had backfired, everything was unraveling. Eventually, Emma disappeared from social media completely. She stopped attending family events and went quiet. It was a relief to have her out of my life, but it didn't erase the damage she caused. My parents, shaken by everything, began reaching out to me more often. My dad admitted they'd mishandled the situation, and my mom, who had been Emma's biggest defender throughout this, finally apologized. "I'm sorry, Mia," she said. "I should have believed you sooner. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't fix everything overnight. But it was a start." Recently, I decided to reclaim my life. I cut off all contact with Emma and set firm boundaries with Jake and my parents. Jake, now separated from Emma, apologized sincerely and began therapy to work through his own issues. My parents also expressed regret, finally admitting they'd let the situation get out of hand. Rebuilding trust will take time, but we're moving in the right direction. This entire ordeal taught me the importance of setting boundaries, standing up for myself, and prioritizing my own happiness. For the first time in a long time, I feel at peace. My relationships are healing, my life is moving forward, and I'm ready to leave all of this behind. Thank you for sticking with me through this journey, Reddit. It's been a wild ride, but I'm finally free to focus on the future I've built for myself. Adios.